Hey, it's DJ from Pro Action back with you here again doing our shock comparison with brand PA, brand L, and brand D. I took the springs out of the way, just kind of a little less confusion. We've already covered the external parts of the shock. Now we're going to go into the inside, see what's different on the inside. So each of the bodies, like we talked about before, very similar. Fill port for nitrogen, fill port for nitrogen. This one's an oil shock, doesn't have nitrogen. We went over the spring collars, the bearings, so everything's good there. Now, all these are anodized on the outside. So you can see the black anodizing on brand D, same here on brand L, gray on the brand PA shock. The difference is going to be on the inside coating. This is hard coat anodized inside and out. So the coating on the inside is actually very smooth, very polished. So that's where your piston rides. One, the metal's sealed. Two, it's real nice and smooth. You're not going to get any contamination from the band. It's not going to wear the band real hard. And it's going to keep, the seal is going to keep the integrity of the body. So we're not going to get any contamination from the aluminum of the body itself. This one is also anodized on the inside. You can run your finger through it. It's not as smooth. This is brand L, not quite as smooth. But the difference is brand L doesn't have a piston running up against that side. So it's going to be not as important. The sealing is going to be the sealing aspect of it to keep from contaminating the oil is a little more important than the actual slickness of it. Brand D, same, it's coated on the inside, a little bit smoother than this one, still not the same polish finish as the PA shock. Get the job done, but just not quite as well. In the PA shock, we use a hard anodized piston with a full piston band. So the band actually has, it's a metal band, has a little split right here where it can come on and off, but it actually stays on the piston, real high quality band, rubbing up against that, the highly polished anodizing inside, less contamination. You don't get as much contamination off the band into the oil. You don't get any debris from the shock body in with your oil. On this shock, on brand L, they use a small piston, basically real small. You see the difference as far as the way that, the Pro Action piston compared to brand L. This one, the difference going to be here with the smaller outside diameter, these shims being a little smaller, they're going to bend a little different. They're a little stiffer to bend than a bigger piston. When you have that extra diameter on the outside, makes it a little easier to bend the shim. The shims kind of move on each other a little smoother, gives you a little smoother stroke, a little smoother transition through the valving itself. This one runs inside the tube. So this inside the shock, basically, this mounts inside there. This is running this way. You can see the actual tube where the piston runs. There's no anodizing. There's no hard coat. There's no sealing. There's nothing to seal the metal. So as that band is wearing against the metal here, one, it's going to wear the band a little more. The other part of that is it's going to bring out the contamination from the metal, so your oil is going to contaminate a little quicker. On brand D, they use a split piston band where ours was metal. This one's just like a regular kind of material of the band there. This wraps around the piston itself. That's their piston. Kind of locks together here. When you put it together, you have to hold it to get everything up inside there. Do these function? Yes, they work. They work very nicely. Not quite as much of control around the piston as there should be. Creates a little bit of blow by because of the actual Z-cut where it goes together is a little wider. Gives you a little bit more wear, a little bit more blow by. So that's it with the pistons and bands. The other thing is the seal heads. So if you look at the red part here, that's the seal head for the Pro Action. That's where your oil seal, that's what keeps all the oil and pressure inside the shock, doesn't let it bleed out past the shaft. Pro Action, brand L, brand D. These don't really move in the shock. Once they're in, they stay stationary right here. In the bottom of the shock, the shaft is what moves in and out. So the anodizing on this one, basically ours is sealed. There's not a lot of wear going on that, but it's still nice to have it sealed. You don't get any contamination from the metal. This is just a raw material. This one's also just a raw material. The O-ring is what seals it up into the body, keep everything from coming out. So these will give you a little bit more contamination on the valving as far as the oil goes. Won't last quite as long, just some little things there. The Pro Action shock, you will get right about 60, 70,000 miles until you need an oil change. We use a real high quality synthetic shock fluid. It's made for motocross, supercross, racing applications. You figure the racing shocks on a supercross track, your shock's running 210, 205 degrees, and the oil does not break down for supercross. So you put it in a Harley shock that's running 10 degrees hotter than it is outside. It gives you a lot of good oil life. The oil doesn't get hot. It doesn't break down. We can get to between the good coatings, the good oil, the good band. We can get you 70,000 miles before you do an oil change. Brand L, Brand D, you're looking at about 30 to 40,000 miles at best until you need your oil change. A lot of that's going to be just a contamination from the raw materials inside, and the oil that they use isn't quite as high quality as what we use. As you can see we went through the adjustment on this shock, on the Pro Action shock. We can turn the little clicker, screwdriver clicker, clockwise, like I said, makes it stiffer, makes it slower in the rebound. Counterclockwise makes it softer in the compression, a little faster in the rebound. What that is doing is, as you can see here, there's a little hole here and a hole in the center here. This little jet in the top, that screws in and out, so you just don't have the solid big hole of the shaft. We developed this size of that hole. It's just like a carburetor jet. You don't want it to run lean, you don't want it to run rich. So we had to adjust the size of that hole to get the optimum flow that we wanted to work with our three-stage valving. On Brand L, this is an oil shock. So we don't have the adjustment on the bottom. You have basically your compression adjustment, controls the compression. On this one, as you can see, the shaft is solid. There's no oil that flows through the shaft, doesn't pop out anywhere. This basically just kind of runs through the oil, and then the valving itself is doing the work. On this one, this is a little bit different, kind of a little bit different the way to go about it, but actually kind of shooting for the same goal, like I said. So here's your piston, rebound side, compression side, the oil flows through there, but they have, instead of having, now this is an open shaft, so you can see where the oil will come out down here, and the oil goes through the top. Instead of having a precisely tuned hole in the jet like Pro Action has, they use a spring-loaded kind of cup here. Now I have this loose so you can actually see it move to kind of get the idea of what's going on. So this is here. So now in a compression stroke, you're pushing this direction. So all the pressure is coming this way. It's spring-loaded. When on a compression stroke, it goes down and shuts the oil flow off through the shaft. So now once you get that compression, once it pushes, it shuts the oil flow off through the shaft. It's forcing all the oil through the piston. The valving is doing all the work. On a rebound stroke, when it switches directions, it opens up this way, lets the oil flow freely through the shaft, kind of replenishes the system, and gives it a little faster rebound stroke. So everything is controlled with the three-stage valving in the Pro Action. They're trying to do here with the with this pressure valve on a compression and rebound stroke. Little different way to go about it, kind of looking for the same goal. This is just basically on and off. There's no ease into the compression, there's no ease out onto the rebound. It's like off here, on there. So it's a little bit of a harsh transition as far as going from one side to the other. That covers most of the inside. The other thing would be on Brand D, you can see the size of the shaft. Brand L, same size shaft. Pro Action, that's a big dog. The difference in the size of the shaft, one, the bigger shaft, you're never going to hurt it, you're never going to crash it, you're never going to bend it, anything like that. Takes up a little more room inside. The thing is there anything wrong with these two shafts? No, they function just fine. Maybe not quite as strong as a bigger shaft, but the big difference here is Pro Action uses the shaft size to actually help tune the performance of the shock. As this shock's going up into the body, that's not taking up a whole lot of room. That's not moving your oil level around. Same with this one. Now, on the Pro Action shock, as this goes up into the body, the bigger shaft takes up more room. So what that does is actually increases the pressure inside the shock a little quicker, shrinks your nitrogen pocket down a little quicker, puts pressure on the nitrogen, which helps it start returning a little faster. So we actually use the size of the shaft as it goes in, affects the height of the nitrogen pocket. It increases the nitrogen pressure quicker, helps kind of bring you back to neutral a little quicker. So that's externally, internally there, that's the differences on some of that stuff. And I'm going to tear this down a little more, and we'll be back in a couple minutes and go through the valving.